All right. All right, and with that, Chang, are you here? I saw you join.
Hello. Hey. Let's see. Start video.
All
Okay,
right.
I got it.
Awesome.
Yeah. I'm constantly looking up because I have a 4K screen monitor connected to my laptop. So, yeah.
Jane, is someone running a leaf blower in your house?
That's my air conditioner, and also I'm playing National Cyber League. So, like for some reason, like Firefox. Oh, I actually turned off Firefox, but I'm working on a Challenger right now. Why does it sound like a jet engine or a leaf blower?
Leaf blower. I think it went away. That was just for a second. I think you're good now.
Yeah. How do I raise the volume on this thing? Because I've already maxed out my volume on my speakers.
I'm not sure I can control it from this side. Check. Yeah, you might have to check your Zoom settings. But all right, I want to go ahead and get started now. Hello, good evening. Happy Friday. Almost the weekend. Hope everybody had a good week at work, if you work or school or what have you. I appreciate everybody joining tonight. It's another Las Vegas chapter OWASP event. I'm gonna go ahead and jump right in, I guess. So tonight we have three panelists representing various areas of cybersecurity. If you didn't know, October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. I've been approached a lot of times, asked, how do you get into cybersecurity? What is that? How much coding do I have to write? Everybody has all these questions around being in cybersecurity, right? Even my son is asking me all these questions about cybersecurity. He's, in junior high and whatnot. So I was like, this would be a great topic for OWASP, right? It's a little outside of AppSec specific, but still very, very relevant, right? So I don't know how many people in the audience actually know of OWASP or what OWASP is. OWASP stands for the Open Web Application Security Project. OWASP is a global nonprofit community. It's a community-driven ecosystem of tools, resources, and people. We're really all there collaborating to help the community, and we're helping globally make applications and software more secure and help standardize standards of security on software applications. We were formed in 2001, and we've really been helping the community for over 20 years now, which is great, right? We do have a lot of free resources available. There is a paid membership option as well. Get some extra access to training materials, a little bit of discounts to certain AppSec events, and a lot of other things, right? Just access to like the training labs that you would normally have to pay for are almost worth the price itself. If you plan on going to any OWASP conference for AppSec, the price of an annual membership, you get the price of the annual membership, apologies, in a discount for being a member. So you literally get, you break even by becoming a member if you go to one event in the amount of money you save from that. Let's see. So really, okay. So one of the great things about OWASP, right, is just the fostering of the community, really embracing the community, and we're really, I guess, a good way to put it, I guess, is we put people first, right? We don't care about profits. We're not here to represent a company or a solution or a technology. We're here from an unbiased perspective, just to help drive and guide proper and good security, across the application security ecosystem, right? So there's, again, a lot of tools, a lot of resources that OWASP has available. So one of the little maps that they have on the OWASP site, which I agree, it's a little bit old school, it needs to be updated. But being the talk being about cybersecurity and getting into cybersecurity, this is a cool resource to show you, depending on what area of application security specifically you might want to get into, what tools that OWASP offers that might be relevant to that, right? There's the amass tool, helps do DNS enumerations, attack service mapping, and stuff like that. Chang, I'm sure you probably know all about that one, or at least if not, it's worth looking at, right? There's the OWASP cheat sheet series, right? It's literally just a website. It's a cheat sheet. So much stuff in there. I honestly make sure that every OWASP Las Vegas talk, I mention the cheat sheet because I like it that much. It's always getting updated. There is tons of good information. Every time I go in there, I make it a habit to just click a random page, and I do learn something new every single time I go there. Very much worth it. There's a lot of other things. OWASP Juice Shop is one of the original purposefully vulnerable web applications for pen test training and application security training, right? Tons of other solutions have been developed basically mocking or because of the OWASP Juice Shop, right? Very great open source valuable tool, and they just actually enhanced that tool and added a capture the flag feature, right? So it even has a gamification aspect built in. You can host your own capture the flag events with it. So really cool, worth checking out. I could really spend all day. I could spend the whole session here just talking about the different tools, and I still wouldn't even be able to to talk about them all, right? So definitely worth checking out. I guess don't hinder yourself with a lack of resources, right? Make sure you check out everything, right? There's so much available, so much helpful, right? OWASP also helps, again, we have our own conference, right? But we also help coordinate with other AppSec conferences and other organizations for information security conferences and stuff, right? We're always part of Black Hat, we're always part of DEF CON and B-Sides and all of that stuff. There's the OWASP Global AppSec conferences around the world. The next one is in San Francisco in mid-November. Definitely worth checking out if you're in the area or have nothing else going on and can afford the tickets. You can always go to infosecconferences.com, take a look at some more conferences. They post a lot there. You can always find a local chapter in your area if Las Vegas is not your local chapter. Or you can always go to our local OWASP Las Vegas chapter page. You're willing to help out. We were always looking for some more people to help out. If you have questions, feel free to reach out. I'm always here to help. Again, my purpose for helping out with OWASP is to give back to the community, right? So take advantage of us as much as you can. Happy to help, right? But we're not here to talk about OWASP, right? I'm sure everybody's like, okay, enough about that. We want to know about getting into cybersecurity, right? We want to know how to. What are the pitfalls? What are the challenges, and what are the benefits, right? Again, today's panel discussion, we have a few experienced cybersecurity professionals, each working in completely different areas of cybersecurity. If all goes as planned, at the end of this session, you should have a better understanding of the different areas of cybersecurity, which might fit you better. And again, some factors involved with getting into cybersecurity, right? We'll discuss good ways to get into there. We'll get feedback from the panelists around their experiences, right? So first, we have Dustin Lair, and I'm sorry if I pronounced your last name wrong. Is it Lair?
It is Lair.
Awesome.
Nice.
So before taking the plunge into security leadership, he was actually a software engineer. Oops, I apologize. Should have muted that. Software engineer and application architect for over 13 years. He worked in industries including retail. He worked for DoD, and even in the video game industry, right? He's got a unique background helping him get a unique perspective on forging these partnerships with development teams and engineering leaders and everything, right? So very thrilled to have Dustin here. So I apologize, I skipped over the one thing. He is actually the Senior Director of Platform Security at Fivetran. And he also works as a consultant to help companies build better security culture and security champion programs. I gotta say, I love his security champion success guide. Definitely worth checking out if you haven't. I can also share details around that after the meeting as well. Dustin, do you want to say hi? Do you have anything to say?
Just happy to be here. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the intro.
Awesome.
Looking forward to this topic. I think we need more talent, specifically with unique backgrounds, to help us, solve the challenges when it comes to cybersecurity. This is not a solved thing. We're still, trying to find the right solutions to the challenges that we see in the industry.
Awesome. All right, and then we also have Mike Julian. Mike Julian, he is a U.S. Coast Guard veteran. He is an information security leader for both technical and business processes. He's got a bachelor's degree in cybersecurity and information assurance from Utica College. He has a master's business administration from Norwich. He currently possesses a CISSP or a Certified Information Security Professional cert, as well as a Security Operations and Management certification, or the GSOM cert. He's got 8 years of information security experience in a wide range of industries, from crypto, MSSPs, finance, healthcare, and now gaming. Mike, do you have anything to say? You want to say hi?
Sure. Yeah, you pretty much covered it. Like Shane said, came up through the standard help desk to security practitioner, help desk, system administrator, security guy, just trying to make those leaps, caught the security bug, and just been, kind of just climbed the ladder of corporate America slowly. But yeah, it's been a good ride. There's you never feel like you know everything. I think there's probably some of the largest instances of imposter syndrome of any IT space in security, because for everything you think you talk to somebody, or a red team assessment or a black hat hacker gets you somewhere you didn't expect, and then you feel like you don't know anything again all over. So yeah, no matter how much you learn, you always feel like you don't know anything. But yeah, it's been a good ride, and look forward to the conversation. I think to Dustin's point, this is not clear. There's no clear path that exists. I think that, especially from the college standpoint, this has been a relatively new area, and colleges have essentially ignored this. I think UNLV here in Vegas just 2 years ago got a cybersecurity program, period. Just to give you an idea of how this is a Division I college. It's a pretty big college, and they had nothing. If you wanted to be in cybersecurity, you could go to CS, computer science, learn to code, and then try to transition. Which in some aspects, if you're going to be an application security engineer, that's good. But in other areas, it doesn't help you that much. We'll get into that, I'm sure, later. But there's a lot of aspects. There's a lot of avenues you can go down. Me, Dustin, and Chang are probably as far apart as you can get, right? Like, from as far as like the areas of our AO is like massively apart. So it's a wide area. That's why we all have imposter syndrome too. But there's a lot to know, and you can absorb as much information as you can, as fast as you can, and still feel like that. So, but yeah, looking forward to the conversation, and nice to meet you guys.
Awesome. Yeah. And thanks again for joining, Mike. And last we have Chang. Chang Tan is an exploit development instructor. He's an independent contractor working on 3 online learning platforms, specializes in user mode exploitation of compiled binaries and reverse engineering. He's sorry, I lost my spot in my notes here. Sorry about that. He's a 2-time consecutive winner of the National Cyber League, and he's done multiple capture the flag events, Bros versus Joes, this year in August. And he's a regular at DEF CON B-Sides and all the security conferences. Chang, you want to say hi and give yourself an introduction?
How you doing?
How's it going? All right. And I guess myself, last, hopefully not least, I'm Shane Mitchell. I've been a software development engineer for over a decade. Currently, I'm, again, the chapter leader for the Las Vegas OWASP chapter for about 3 years now. I've been actually in a professional role in IT security for about 2.5 years. I have a passion for system design and solutioning. Really, after well over a decade in software development, I specialize in modernizing software and IT processes around software creation and maintenance. Me and Dustin share a very similar path. Currently, I also work with Mike at Boyd Gaming. My title is the Senior IT Security Architect. Let's see. So, I guess first, to start, I guess I'll have to say that I really never thought I would be in a cybersecurity position, right? So, like even after a decade of software development, if you were to tell me that that I was going to be an infosec, I'd be like, I don't know about that. That's like some alternate universe, like MCU multi-dimension thing, right? Like, no way, that's not. I don't do info. I'm not an infosec guy, I don't do threat modeling and all that. But I didn't have any certifications. It just did not seem like a feasible path to me, really, right? What happened is I started just really focusing on being thorough in my job role, being a developer. After you get the structures down and you get the logic handled and you say, okay, well, now I'm going to work on my data structures and my architecture. And okay, now I'm going to start picking apart frameworks and really designing full solutions. And you really get into the DevOps and the systems layer. And you really, again, start diving into the architecture. You really realize, you go, wow, security is so much more lacking than I thought. There's this thing called OWASP. What? Okay. Hey, this is all good stuff. I didn't know any of this. Wow, my stuff's not secure, right? So it kind of an eye opener. When you actually look into stuff and you see that, like, I guess from my perspective, I was like, well, I like being thorough. Let me make sure I incorporate security, right? I'm going to start, join an OWASP a little bit and make sure my stuff is more secure. So in doing that, I joined OWASP, and again, I still had no intention of being in a cybersecurity specific role. What happened is I decided, I've been using OWASP for years. I'm going to give back. I'm going to join OWASP as a chapter leader, and I'm going to help. And then somebody noticed, like, hey, there's this AppSec guy. He's got a strong history in software development. He's obviously interested in application security. They reached out to me and said, hey, we have a position that we'd like to talk to you about. I happen to fit the bill, and voila, next thing you know, I'm in IT security, right? Doing application security architecture. So again, there's many paths, many ways to get into there, right? Luckily though, you don't really need certifications, right? I didn't have certifications. All I had was a desire to, learn more and some experience that I can show that I put in the effort in security, right? That I'm willing to get down there, and that I have, a focus on security in some regard. And that's really all that most companies want to see for an entry level. You're going to see entry level 15 years. There's all these jokes on social media around, like, oh, entry level cybersecurity, 15 years of this, 10 years of this. Yeah, that's ridiculous. Generally though, in reality, if you don't have all that experience, you show your initiative, and when you go into an interview and you just be honest and you say, look, this is what I know, this is how I go about things. I think it was Dustin or Mike that said there's a huge gap in job roles in cybersecurity, right? So there's plenty of room for people who are still growing and learning. In fact, like Mike said, you're always still growing and learning, right? Again, to circle back to like the major areas of cybersecurity, really, I like to break it down into 3 areas. OWASP, I guess, likes to break it down into 3 areas. I really follow suit. I think they're very, very well broken down, right? You have breakers, you have builders, and you have defenders, right? from a very high level. Okay. So like your breakers, right? Those that's Chang. Those are your hackers, your penetration testers. Those are the guys that you always see on the news, causing ransomware and getting all your Uber data, you know. Then you have the builders, right? These are the guys like Dustin. They're software developers, they're architects. They make sure that you have a secure product from the start and that it can be maintained securely, right? And then you have Mike's side of the fence, the defenders, the blue teamers, the digital police of the IT environment. These are the guys monitoring systems, watching alerts, hunting down stuff, locking down your box because you shouldn't have ran that executable. It wasn't a it wasn't a sanctioned app, stuff like that, right? They all have multiple areas in these categories that you can specialize in, right? So I mean, I guess I'll open up to the panel a bit. You guys, how did you get into cybersecurity? I don't know who wants to start.
Yeah, I'll start because, like you said, we have similar background, and what you mentioned in terms of the vastness of knowledge that's out there to learn, really, like I had the same experience. I refer to it as the security rabbit hole. Like you go to OWASP and you start to get into it and you start to recognize just how broad and deep this whole industry is. So I actually started that while I was, still a developer, still an application architect. For me, I've always been focused on quality in general. So it was not just let's make it work, but how do we make it work? How do we make sure it's maintainable? How do we make it performance? And then how do we make it secure, right? So I always kind of had that along with me throughout my career. And eventually, when I saw an opportunity to switch from being an application architect to a security architect, I was like, yes, let's do this. I want to help teams, development teams code more securely. I want to help them build quality software at the end of the day. And after joining the team as a technical resource, I actually got an opportunity to lead the team after just a few months. It was still sort of a new team at the company that I was working with at the time, and got that opportunity. And it was kind of one of those things where like I was technical my whole career and had that opportunity to get into leadership and just thought, it's time to kind of make a difference, make a change, by taking on that leadership role. And did that and never looked back. I've loved every minute of being involved in cybersecurity.
Awesome. What about you, Mike? How'd you get into cybersecurity, right?
Yeah, so I was in the Coast Guard, not in IT. In the Coast Guard, they do have an IT rate, I think, but I was a boatswain mate, so I just drove boats and saved folks around, and had to leave that position due to some issues with my ex-wife and taking care of my kid. So came back to Vegas and didn't really have a plan, and just kind of was I was at a pickup or a beer league softball game. A guy that I was playing with had a job at an AV company that he was leaving to go back to school for engineering, and he's like, "Do you want my job?" And I was like, "Sure, I can. I can hang a TV and all that." And so I started this little tiny AV company that did mostly Buffalo Wild Wings build outs. And if you've ever been to Buffalo Wild Wings, they actually have regs that say they have to have so many TVs per square foot. And so that's what we did. We hung all those TVs, and then there's a very complicated routing infrastructure in the back. And the person that did all that networking, I would think I was there for like 2 or 3 months. He left, and before he left, he said, "You're the youngest one here. You're going to learn all this in a month, and then you're going to do it." So he kind of taught me, the basics of punching down, an Ethernet cable and how to program this interface, this old school interface, and to get these TVs going. And so I kind of got really involved in like networking, because we were setting up essentially all this network for the TVs. We were doing the Wi-Fi. We were setting up VPNs for Buffalo Wild Wings and all this networking stuff. And I thought I wanted to be a network engineer. So I started training to do that. I got some jobs in that area. And then I got my first legitimate tech job, just being on the help desk at the Carpenters Union. And at the time, my cousin worked at Tech Systems, and if you don't know, Tech Systems is a recruiting firm for tech people. And I asked her if she was a recruiter, and I asked her, I was like, what should I do? And she said that the salaries for the information security people that I place are the highest of anybody. So you should do that. I said, okay. And so I decided, I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll go to college for information security. Went to college, and about 2 years later, got a call from I think while I was going to college, I got a system administrator job. So I went from the help desk to system admin, worked system admin for a little bit, and then got a call from a friend of mine who was starting a company in the crypto space, where they were essentially auditing Ethereum smart contracts, and he needed a security guy. And he gave me kind of like my first shot at a full security gig. It was a more Swiss Army knife. I was doing everything. I was doing the networking. I was setting up servers. I was doing a lot of system administration as well as security, and just kind of built on that. Ended up, that company went out of business when the ICO and the SEC killed the ICO game, and I got picked up by one of our customers. And yeah, I haven't looked back. So that was, I worked in crypto finance, and then just have been I was in the startup world for a long time, which is a rough gig. If you looked at my LinkedIn, you'll see I left, I left these companies pretty, after, they would close or go out of business, or in the case of, if anybody has heard of NS8, they were the largest fraud in Nevada state history. So I worked there as well. And so it's a rough game, but it's a fun game. And we'll say, like, at the smaller companies, you'll get more opportunity to do, a wider range of things. The larger the company, the more you're going to get kind of pigeonholed into a smaller sectional area of information security, instead of being like, oh, you do everything, right? You're in charge of absolutely everything. If you come to a Fortune 500 company, you're going to be in charge of, you're just doing, threat and vulnerability management, or you're just doing, WAF stuff. Like, you could get pigeonholed into a very small piece. Yeah. So if you do want to learn as much as possible, as fast as possible, like the broadest range, to kind of figure out where you fit best, I would recommend a smaller company that gives you more freedom. There are some caveats. You don't get the budget, so
or the guidance. You might not get
the guidance. Yeah, you're kind of on your own. So reach out. I think a lot of people, especially if you reach out to us, or you reach out to me on LinkedIn, like, and you want some mentorship, I think we'll help you out. Like, I don't think we're going to snuff you on that. So if you're like, hey, I'm so and so, and I want to do such and such, what's your advice? I think we would give you that advice. So, but yeah, so just, kept moving up the ranks, and decided to get out of the startup world, and now I'm at the big company. So with all the budget, which is fun, I can buy the expensive toys. But I mean, honestly, it's the same. It's really the same technologies, right? It's just some of the stuff is easier than others, just because it's more expensive. It's better polished. You don't have to do so much work, which you don't have time for because you're so busy. But,
as I say, we'll start getting into some of that stuff a little bit later. Yeah. But how about you, Chang? How did you really get into like the cybersecurity space?
Funny story to tell you. So I broke up with my girlfriend somewhere around 2015. I just went through a surgery, and I found out that my webcam drivers was hacked. She used to be signals intelligence in the United States Army. She knows Lieutenant Jeffrey Lee from I think formerly United States Cyber Command. I don't know how this implant was put in, but ever since then, I just, locked down my computer, and I thought about, penetration testing. So I just want to explain about who I am. My name is Chang Tan, and in April 2017, I attacked United Airlines. My federal criminal case, which has now been resolved, is 19-CR-701, and I made a custom payload, and I sent it to United Airlines. The FBI arrested me. Well, they initially raided me on March 2018, middle of March, and I was finally indicted and arrested on September 4th, 2019. I did 22 months because of COVID. So, they keep delaying my, meetings to the judge. I went through 3 federal prisons, a private prison called Core Civic Nevada, which I went through 2 prison riots. I've been in Oklahoma City Federal Transfer Center for 3 weeks. So largest facility I've ever seen. I have never seen a federal prison that can process 300 people that just got off of JPATS or Con Air, Nicolas Cage calls it. And I also been in Chicago MCC, and I know R. Kelly. R. Kelly was on the 13th floor with me. He was actually in the cell. I'm not kidding you. I actually have like a blog post. Although, a lot of people say I'm a bit delusional and I add a lot of my anger, to the story, but I'm just telling the truth, it's on my blog. I just want to warn you that it's not safe for work, it's very, very dark. But yes, I have ran into R. Kelly. I know multiple fraudsters, including Sean Baldwin, who has selfies with Barack and Michelle Obama, and he embezzled $10 million. I was his typist in Chicago MCC. But talking about getting back into cybersecurity, I actually wrote a bunch of things that I want to talk about. So I am currently a student for the Massey Cybersecurity Institute of Australia. I am going for the MCSI Code Deobfuscation Specialist certification, an extremely difficult certification.
Yeah.
But I've been watching and reading podcasts, because I know Daniel Kelly, the Talk hacker from the United Kingdom, and Nicholas Knight. I have a meeting with all of them tomorrow. Don't think of it as a bad thing. This is kind of like NAMI, like a mental health thing for reformed Black hats to, come together and just stop each other from doing something stupid, But I want to point out a couple of concerns because I keep hearing this in these cybersecurity podcasts. Podcasts like Security Now, Smashing Security, they keep promoting, and I hope sarcastically, that there's 2 ways to go into cyber. You either get certified, or you go to prison for hacking. You do your time and your supervised release, and then you might get a cybersecurity job because everybody thinks you're a subject matter expert. So, like I said before, I know Daniel Kelly. I added a link in the chat. He does work right now for a startup. He works 16 hours, and a lot of people try to recruit him. Also know Nicholas Knight. Nicholas Knight. I can't recall the story, but he was tricked into performing SQL injection on a United States nuclear aircraft carrier. But previously, he was part of Team Digital on Twitter, and he hacked at least 20 federal agencies, including NASA. And I talk to them every Sunday, although I actually talk to them on the chat, on our private, self-help Discord, self-support, group support Discord, like actually every day on Discord. I also know at least 4 infraud indictment. You might have heard about the infraud indictment. So at Core Civic Nevada, the private prison in Pahrump, Nevada. Back to the topic. So I want to tell you Nicholas Knight's story.
So hey Chang, we're gonna have like a whole Q&A. We're gonna have some opportunity to that, so we could circle back to some of those stories in a little bit. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there. Apologies, but
yeah. But I just want to say that Nicholas Knight was not able to secure employment, for years. Like as soon as they find out, like they Google him on the news, even if he passes background check, he gets fired.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
No, and that's a great point, right? And again, I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to cut you off or anything, right? I'm just trying to keep my time
good.
A little bit. But I mean, and that's a great point, right? Because there's there's many ways to get into there, right? There's goods and bads, right? I see somebody posted in chat talking about that black hats getting offered jobs as soon as they get out of doing time after they get caught, right? There are, as Chang noted, and as it looked like somebody else noted, there are instances where that literally bans opportunities, right? Depending on what you're talking about, you cannot get a federal job unless you have some sort of massive exception granted. You have to know somebody, otherwise you're barred, right? So penetration test really is a good place to start when we're talking about the various roles in cybersecurity, right? Penetration testers, right? Or for I guess for those of the audience that don't really know the term penetration tester, really, they're professional hackers, right? All a penetration tester is hacker is like, oh, you're a hacker, you're illegal. Oh, penetration tester. Okay, well, companies pay you to hack them. Really, that's oh, apparently it's just decided to start recording again. So it might be broken into several recordings. I apologize. So where was I?
I clicked the button. So you can do it. The recording. I didn't know I had.
It should have already been recording. Yeah. So all right. So where was I? Oh yeah. So penetration tester is the common job title again when you're hired at a company, but really like so. If you like, I've known many penetration testers, right? If you go to a penetration tester at a bar or at a party and you're like, hey, what do you do for a living? They're not going to say I'm a penetration tester 9 out of 10 times. They're going to say, I'm a professional hacker. First, sounds so much cooler. I have to admit, everybody has to admit that when you go, yeah, I'm a professional hacker. That sounds so cool, right? But at the same time, it really is the same job. So, there's many different types of penetration testing, right? There's wireless penetration testing, mobile penetration testing. You can specialize in a very specific area of penetration testing. You could literally say, well, all I do is social engineering. I don't really write code. I don't do any of that. All I'm really good at is social engineering. You could have zero code skills and still be a very effective penetration tester within a certain vertical. Right. So again, a career in cybersecurity is not necessarily what a lot of people think when they start thinking cybersecurity. Right. There's also different types of penetration testing. There's gray box, there's black box, there's white box tests. Right. And you can go look into what those mean. There's a lot of there's a lot of terminology that's very information security specific. Once you start getting into there. I don't remember who said it. I think it was Dustin said it's like a rabbit hole, right? For every 2 things you find, there's 10 more things that are intriguing that you're like, ooh, I need to circle back to that. So like Mike said, right? Imposter syndrome comes along with it because the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. So that kind of, that's basically where imposter syndrome stems from. But me, I like that. I value that. The more I'm learning, the more I feel like I'm improving myself, the better, right? As long as I'm always improving, then great. That's my philosophy, anyways. So Chang, when you got out, I do have to ask, right? When you kind of got out and you got released again, and you decided, I'm gonna start making videos on penetration testing. I'm gonna go like legit, I'm gonna go white hat or whatever instead of black hat. I'm gonna go pen tester instead of hacker. Like what made you decide to do that instead of just kind of doing something else, right? Like somebody put in chat that a lot of times you come out of a black hat scenario. If you get locked up or something, you get caught doing something you're not supposed to, and you're basically in there for life, right? Weren't you afraid of veering back into that?
I have not gone back into that. I am on constant supervision. I'm still on supervised release for the next 21 months. I got a really cool probation officer right now though. So as soon as I got out of prison, within 5 months, I completed my accounting degree. And then I immediately re-enrolled for fall 2022. August 2022 for finance. And I'm under this belief that by using forensic accounting knowledge with finance, like options trading, like short strangles, iron condor, straddles, and iron flies. You can beat the market. And obviously, if you work in the fintech sector, you know, like you need to protect your assets because they're just coming after, you know, your assets. They're trying to pwn your employees. So I felt that combining accounting, finance, and cybersecurity is a very powerful, you know, force. I have taken like a little assessment in my management 371 class. Apparently I have some sort of extreme ability to build leverage and power, but I mean, I'm not a power mad person. I wouldn't abuse such kind of power like that, you know, like people like Maxim Yakubets, which is wanted by the FBI for the Ryuk, I hope I pronounced it right, the Ryuk ransomware campaign. They hacked over a couple 100,000 hospitals, holding them hostage. Like, you know, that guy is sick. I mean, this guy like brags about his fancy Lamborghini in Moscow, you know, doing selfies on like Russian social media websites, you know. For me, like all I did was write a remote access Trojan and then send it to United Airlines. And when you're talking, the original question, like you asked me, how did I pivot into being a white hat? So I, at the time, cybersecurity was heavily paywalled, especially binary exploitation. It's like this little, you know, secret coven or something, you know, you got to pay like at least $1,500 to get a course on how to do a buffer overflow. This is the year 2018, you know. So I actually contemplated making a exploit development course online for many years. And this is even before I was indicted. So around 2018, I was thinking about, you know, studying exploit development and then actually teaching it. So I finally released the course around the start of 2020. I went back to prison for a bond violation because someone turned me in. I don't have co-defendants, but you know, someone just ratted me out saying I violated my bond conditions. So I went back to prison. So I actually made money that's put on my prison commissary, you know, while I was in prison. So since then, I focused on binary exploitation. And, you know, it wasn't because of courses from offensive security that actually inspired me to do binary exploitation. It was from this book that I read at Barnes and Noble. I was actually high on drugs, so I can cover 200 pages of the CISSP study guide, 8th edition, written by Sean Harris in a day. And there was this one very important paragraph in that book. Higher level programming languages are abstractions of lower level languages.
Yes.
C, C++ are abstractions of assembly.
Yep.
Node.js is built on top of Google Chrome's V8 JavaScript engine.
Yes.
They are abstractions. So I realized if you really want to root somebody, like completely own or pwn somebody, you know, you need to get down to basically this lowest level.
Yeah, the
Right.
lowest common denominator. Yeah.
Right. Because shellcode, as they call it, there's many types of shellcode, but shellcode mainly is assembly opcodes. They have encoders. I'm actually learning how to write my own virtual machine, not like a VMware virtual machine, but a virtual machine that is known as a bytecode interpreter. So it substitutes the standard AMD 64 CPU instruction set or ARM 64 instruction set with its own little hexadecimal bytecodes. And then you can XOR out those bytecodes. So now when you build malware, or if you want to protect video game software, you can actually exclusive OR every single function's memory address, and only at runtime of the function would it be decrypted or deobfuscated to be executed. So it makes it very difficult for, let's say, video game cheaters, you know, to deobfuscate the multi-level pointers or the offsets to those pointers to give, you know, Grand Theft Auto 6 exploding bullets and, you know, flying cars and ruin the game experience for everyone else. So that's why I chose the MCD, because it actually gives me more flexibility, you know?
So yeah, so no, and that's great, right? But I gotta try to keep moving. I think we're running a little bit behind in the schedule.
Yeah.
But yeah, for penetration testing, right? So again, there's a lot of potential there. You can make good money, right? And again, when you're on the penetration testing side, right? When you let companies pay you to hack them, you're helping the customers, you're helping the consumers, the companies, right? And you're not risking all of that negative stuff that Chang had to go through, right? So again, follow the right path. If you want to hack somebody, there's plenty of avenues to do so legally, right? But yeah, so I mean, hacking or penetration testing or whatever, right? That's really the guide or I guess the driver for the need for cybersecurity in the first place. Unfortunately, there's so many smart people that for whatever reason have some incentive, whether it's financial, whether it's payback, whatever it is, some incentive and the ability to maliciously digitally attack somebody or some asset, right? So with that, right, becomes that need for the IT police, the security operations team, right? Time for Mike to come in with the big guns. Right, that's how I like to think of security operations anyways, is like digital police, right? They detect, they protect, they respond, right, to any malicious attempts in the environment. They monitor, they throw off alerts. They're the ones who tell people what they can and can't do so that they can properly monitor and throw alerts, right? They have to keep tabs on various hacker organizations, understand new vulnerabilities as they come out and the level of severity that's accommodated with them, right? Really, every area of cybersecurity has some involvement with security operations. Even the penetration tester hacker side, obviously, right? Because without them, that's the yin to the yang, So, I mean, Mike, I actually, you know what, Dustin, how just curious, right? In the development side, how is security operations factored into your side of the fence?
Root cause analysis in a statement, right? Meaning, what were the weaknesses that ultimately led to the incident that Mike had to investigate, right? So the domain of kind of application security, and I don't know if you have a slide about this at some point, but really a lot of the focus is on prevention, right? So it's, how do we write secure code? How do we build in habits? Here you go. Yep. How do we build habits into our environments that ultimately protect us from attacks? Because, it's weaknesses that attackers end up exploiting. And these things are preventable, but there is quite a bit of work and care and attention that needs to be put into building systems the right way to make them resilient and to protect them from attack ultimately. So that's kind of where I focus.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, and there's another domain, I just want to mention this, that I think is important to call out that I didn't see in your list. I know you said more at the bottom, which is great, but it's the whole security awareness sort of human element of security, which I find completely fascinating. And it's a really good place to start. Social engineering. How do you train your people to prevent social engineering attacks and identify phishing units,
yep,
and prevent them from sharing information or files in a way that attackers can take advantage of it, or even just write good passwords? There's a lot of things that regular users can do to help thwart attackers ultimately in the environment.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of challenge trying to influence people's behavior and build that culture of security. I find it fascinating. It's like part sociology and psychology and understanding the human, fallacies that we have and why do we do things? Why do we act the way that we do? So I mention that especially because we're talking about getting into cybersecurity. Certainly there's a lot of things you can learn technically, but I think this human element side is beyond technical, right? There's a lot of untapped opportunity there in helping to train and reinforce good behaviors across environments. So it could be a good place to start for folks who are looking to get into this.
Awesome. No, that's great. That's well said, right? Because like exactly like you said, you have to train non-technical people, and how do you go tell the front desk clerk that, hey, they're gonna run malicious binaries out of a memory out of an undumped memory store? Like, huh? You're speaking German or French, or like they're not gonna get that. So really finding that way to communicate that is almost a job in itself, depending on the size of the organization, right? There's, like you said, there's just so many different aspects that people don't think about, that could be a great avenue even for non-technical people, right? There are a lot of areas that you do have to be pretty technical, right? But a lot of the times you can learn as you go, right? So Mike, you know what are some of the different things that that a SOC does, or that your team as a security operations department does?
Yeah, so like at the core of it, we have, a plethora of tooling that detects malicious behavior. If you try to dump a malicious payload, if something tries to reach out to a malicious URL, if hundreds of rules in our SEM that set off alerts. And these alerts, whenever you have a plethora of security tools, and especially a large organization like this, you get a lot of security alerts. We get somewhere between 45 and 100 legit security alerts a day. Now, 99% of those are either a false positive, like it was normal behavior, or thought it was a security incident, it wasn't. They're benign positive, like it was regular behavior, and yeah, it detected a thing, but actually we're allowing that in our environment, or a true positive, right? So we get very few true positives. Out of the true positive alerts, even a smaller percentage of those are actual incidents. Whereas, let's say Mr. Tan here drops a malicious payload into our environment, and our EDR, stops the process, sends the alert in. We'll see that as a true positive. Like, yes, we detected it, but it wasn't an incident because there's no impact. Now, if he gets traction in the environment and starts, generally hackers, one of two things: are either trying to steal information, or they're trying to lock it up and charge you for it. Because that's really the only two ways you can make money as a hacker. You're either trying to take information from them and sell it on the black market, or you're trying to lock their information up and charge them to unlock it. If one of those things happened, I guess there's probably some spam stuff on the back end. Like you could have some advertisement spam if you have a website. I guess that might be a small tertiary one. But if he were to get to that point where he actually was able to exploit, we would call that an incident, right? And so we kind of have this like tiered approach. And what the SOC's job is they take in all these security alerts and they triage them to determine if those are false positives, true positives, et cetera. And then as that cone comes down and we get down to incident, then there's more things you have to do. If you actually get to a true positive situation, you might have to do an RCA, root cause analysis, like Dustin said, or an incident especially, you might have to call in a third party, and there's an incident response that happens at the end of that tunnel when we figure out, Mr. Tan has successfully exploited our company. Then we grab that piece of software. We might get the FBI involved. We're going to look through there. We're going to look for, maybe, I don't know how he got caught, but there was something in that code or his IP address, or there was some mistake that he made in his, exploitation, which led them back to him, right? Otherwise, he wouldn't have been caught. So something in that code or something to do with its connection. And so that's something that not a traditional SOC, but security operations would also be responsible for, would be to chase that down. Sometimes forensics, we don't have a forensics guy on the call, but sometimes forensics rolls into that where they tear stuff apart and do, malware analysis and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's I was about to say the same thing, forensic, right? Because as soon as it happens, well, now you have to dive into root cause analysis. You have to get into some nitty gritty details. You have to be very thorough, very precise. And you have to have tons of processes ready to go so that as soon as that happens, boom, fire drill happens. Everybody knows what to do. We're in incident mode. We need to keep this information, and we need to make sure that the information doesn't go away so that we can do that forensic discovery, right? And then and then on top of that, you still have to tune the tools anyways, right? So yeah, you have this team that's monitoring and triaging and the different aspects and making sure that the rules are being tightened. But then you have threat hunters, right? So you have your forensics guy, you have your security analysts, right? That are handling these alerts. You have your threat hunters. They're going out keeping tabs on the different malicious actors, right? And working with you as management, like, hey, how do we tune our tools and add the new indicators of compromise or IACs and stuff like that, or IOC, sorry, and tuning those tools so that those alerts are effective and not just not going off when they should, right? Again, a lot of areas just within the security operations, right? Even roles that we didn't even mention, right? But yeah, like again, like cybersecurity, like you said, Mike, it always comes down to the data, right? It's always the data, and what manipulates the data is the software. So at their core, without software and data, there would be no reason for cybersecurity, because otherwise all you're doing is connecting systems for electricity to transfer. If there's no software and there's no data, all of it's irrelevant, right? So that's where kind of circling back into the development side, right? Like you have to create these tools securely. You have to make sure that you have plans and processes in place to do it right and to maintain it, as Dustin said, right? So Dustin, what's the most important aspect or aspects of building like a secure solution that you can maintain?
There are so many moving parts here. It's hard to know, but I think what to do is understanding your environment. Like you said, without software and data, there's really nothing, there's no incentive, there's no reason to be attacked. So understanding what systems you have in your environment, what software have you built, what products are out there, and what type of data that do they handle, is very important to what we do, because if you don't know about it, you can't secure it, right? So I think I would say that's sort of the baseline to building a good secure development practice. And then on top of that, you can't fix everything. Attackers know this. I think for the most part, if somebody targets you specifically, you're probably in trouble because you just cannot fix everything. Now, fortunately, most attackers, and Cheng, maybe you can validate this. They're looking across a broad range of companies, et cetera, to attack, and they're going for the easiest targets.
Yeah,
right.
Most definitely. Teapot, Teapot, the 17-year-old kid from the United Kingdom. You know what? Like, I assess his ability. My abilities have dramatically improved since the April 2017 United Airlines attack. But assessing Teapot, this teenage British hacker's kid, this kid, everybody wants Teapot out. Like, he's going to the Old Bailey, the meanest, roughest federal, it's actually a royal court in the United Kingdom. He's going to get maxed out. He's going to do a long time. He's a 17-year-old. And he's the one that hacked Uber, and he's the one that hacked Rockstar Games, and Teapot, he called it MFA exhaustion. Like, you just constantly logged into this Rockstar employee's account, triggering the MFA code until finally the contractor gave up, and then finally said, okay, we'll let you log in, And then according to what I found online and what Daniel Kelly has shown me, what a lot of people have shown me from VX Underground, is that all he did was he found a bunch of PowerShell scripts within the VPN of either Uber or Rockstar. So he used techniques that any entry-level person who with a $10 try hack me premium VIP subscription can learn. And he managed to do that much damage. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's very, back to the point I was making, thank you, Chang, is attackers are very opportunistic, right? Like they're going to go for the low hanging fruit for the most part, unless they have a grudge against your company for whatever reason, maybe they're disgruntled or something. But so it's really about preventing, to the extent possible, a lot of that low hanging fruit at your organization so that you don't become an easy target. And that's kind of the game that we play. So we prioritize a lot of things by that. Like, what are the systems that are out there? Like I was saying before, what's the data that they have access to that an attacker could obtain if they attacked your system? And then, prioritizing which ones are the most important to protect, and spending your limited time and resources building, safeguards and ensuring that the code bases are secure and that they have, the right protections in place ultimately. So that's kind of the cat and mouse game, that we play. And I think that's one of the most fascinating parts of being in cybersecurity is it's very much about trying to outsmart the other side. Like to the example that Cheng gave, why was this person able to send multiple MFA requests to this user back to back? Like in my mind, this is how I think, there's a simple piece of code in there that says, you know what, only allow 5 of them per hour, and that's enough in most cases to frustrate the attacker to move on.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's kind of about that, like trying to figure out how to outsmart the other side.
Yeah,
that's the hard part about this job, though, is that it's something that you wouldn't think about when you're writing that software. You're like, oh, hey, we need multi-factor authentication. So if you request login, we're going to send it to you. You're not necessarily thinking about, oh, what do we do if someone does that, 1,000 times? It's not, and then until it happens, and that's what to your point earlier, that root cause analysis, where you're like, how did this happen? Oh, massive MFA requests. Okay, how can we stop that? Simple piece of code, 5 in an hour. That's all you get, or 5 in 30 minutes. Or Google's implementation, I think, and we're going to implement it as well. It gives you those numbers and it makes you enter the number, right? So if you get an MFA request, it says tap the number that appears on your screen. So when you request on the machine, it'll say like 71, and you have to tap. You get 3 or 4 numbers on your phone. You have to tap the right one, and that at least reduces the chances, although it doesn't completely eliminate.
Yeah, and then you get into usability versus security too, and now you're making people jump through hoops, to make sure that they're secure. So that's always a balance. Maybe not all the users would appreciate that. So you could put your product at risk and your ability to profit from it at risk if you're being overly restrictive with the customer actions. So you always just have to balance that. But you make a really good point, because I think training people to think that way, like making your application work, is like the bare minimum at this point.
Exactly.
Right? Like you need to go way above and beyond that. You need to think of what we call abuse cases. How can somebody exploit what you've built, not only just for malicious purposes, but one of the CIA triads is availability too. How could somebody bring down your systems, possibly even on accident, and really think through those different cases. There's this whole industry of people on the quality engineering side, and that's really their job. They think about ways to test applications, and the good ones really do think about those edge cases and abuse cases. And that really just educates everybody. I think starting to go down this path, you really learn just how much you have to think about when you write a piece of code. It's not just make it work, it's make it resilient as well and protect it, right? So.
Making security transparent is probably the most valuable skill in the space. Right, kind of like when I know a lot of you guys are probably coders. I'm not, right? I don't write any code, and I'm in this space. So if you're not a coder and you don't think you get in security without being able to code, I'm right here.
Yeah.
But Dustin and Shane code a lot, and that as coders, you can hack together this jumbled mess of stuff to accomplish a task, or you could have this extremely elegant 3-line wonder that does it perfectly, like with the least amount of resources and as fast as possible, right? And security is the same way as Dustin opined on. The CIA triad. It's one of the guiding principles of being in security. It's confidentiality of the data, so keeping it obscured from anybody else's view that doesn't need it. It's the integrity of the data, keeping the data from being changed by somebody that shouldn't be able to. And the last piece and the hardest piece is the accessibility, because the most secure system is one that you just unplug. If I unplug your laptop and I lock it into a safe, it's pretty secure. Someone had to break into your house, break into the safe, get the laptop. So if you want to have worldwide access to some program, it becomes harder and harder to secure it, and especially in a manner that's transparent to the user, because users will only tolerate so much work to do their jobs. An organization like us, we have 10,000 employees. They'll only tolerate so much. How much burden can I put? If you're spending an hour a day getting through security processes, the CEO is going to be unhappy. I just took away 10% of the efficiency of the company across the board. That'd be pretty bad.
Yeah. So I wanted to take this time to open the floor up to the audience. I want to give everybody a chance to ask our panelists or myself some questions. Does anybody have questions to ask? If so, just either click the little raise hand button if somebody else is talking, or somebody can start by just unmuting themselves right now. I allowed you to unmute yourselves, by the way, if you'd like to ask a question. Go ahead, Gabriel Jimenez.
Hi, how's it going?
Hi.
Thank you for the presentation. It's pretty good. I'm completely fresh. I mean, I graduated with a business degree in business technology management. So that's more of like, SQL stuff, just basic business commerce coding, and then more of the mainstream presentations and social engineering side. Someone who wants to get into cybersecurity though, I got a friend who recommended some networking textbooks like CCNA and some other like ITIL processes and things to read up on. But I was wondering if you guys could give me any like recommendations for fundamentals or like must-have technical certifications, especially in the coming days, now that this is a growing industry, and I can see it even in my city. There's a bunch of job offers, and it's a really big industry now.
Yes, most definitely your CompTIA certifications. I don't recommend pursuing a CISP, but you should read the book. You should read the study guide book. It's going to give you a fast track. In chat, I also talked about more about my tactics. I haven't said all of my tactics, and I will not tell you about the red teaming tactics I currently use now. But those are just very, very basic tricks that I use in chat, for my initial foothold. To learn these techniques, you need to start from the bottom. All right. So you need to understand the basics of the Net Plus, Security Plus, A Plus, then start studying to, I would say, offensive security kind of stuff, because offensive security is actually, yes, that's correct. You have to have 5 years of IT security experience before you qualify for taking the CISP exam. Yeah.
So yeah, it's probably not a good one to start with, right? And
Right.
and I think a lot of the ones that were noted, and I think the one you said, so I'm, and again, anybody else can jump in, but traditionally the most certifications, when you ask like someone who's been doing this for a long time, right, in cybersecurity for a long time, and you ask what cert should I start with, they're almost always going to recommend a network-based path, right? The NetSec Plus, all of these older certs like are very network focused, right? So there's again, there's a huge growth and shift a little bit in that, right? There's a lot more. If you go to iscsquared.org, it's isc2.org. They even have some certifications that's just general beginner, like entry to cybersecurity kind of courses and certs that you can take just to again prove that you're trying to get into the space. And you could find a lot of certs that are application security focused or penetration testing focused that aren't necessarily network focused. However,
Right.
I do have to say that the networking part is still a big aspect, because in a penetration testing environment, it's all about communicating system to system, and it's very heavily network based. So you have to have at least some understanding
Right.
of network communication if you're going into any type of penetration testing
Yes.
type of role. But yeah, look around. Again, ISE Squared is a good one. SANS, SANS
Yes.
is another good resource. Mike,
Offensive
Dustin, what other good resources would you recommend looking into?
I got some good advice for you, Gabriel. And I don't know why more people don't give this advice. It's so obvious to me, but it just is not obvious to other people. Because what will happen, it will say, I want to get into X job. What's the best cert to get? Just go on LinkedIn, put in the job that you want into the search, in the job search, and look at the requirements on the job, on the JD, right? And so my advice to you would be get into tech. If you're not currently employed in a technical position, get into tech as soon as humanly possible. Help desk, AV company, I mean, tech adjacent, any job that you can get. If you can get a help desk, intern job somewhere, get it, because you'll learn more sitting on a a $35,000 a year help desk job than you ever will reading through the CISP. You just will, because you'll be doing it every day, right? And then on top of that, if you want to advance your career, when you get home at night, you can study the CISP, or you can study Net Plus or whatever. Now, if you can't get that job, right, because what will end up happening is it's chicken and the egg, and this is going to happen to you throughout your entire career, because you'll be in the help desk and you'll need a security job, and you're like, well, you don't have any security experience, and so you're going to have to like bridge that gap, right? And you bridge that gap with these certifications, right? You show like, hey, I am committed to this because I went and got the certification. Go home and lab, right? If you're a help desk tech and you don't have admin creds at your organization, set up a lab at home and practice actually doing the work, and then show that on your resume, so you can be like, hey, look, I'm motivated to learn. I'm not doing this right now, but I have these certs that I went and got, and I'm labbing at home, and I'm ready to, I will do anything. Just give me the job, and I will work as hard as I can to learn as fast as I can as possible.
Yeah.
And if you want to, and this goes all the way up any level, right? If you want to be a CISO, a Chief Information Security Officer, go look at the requirements for a CISO position. That's a little bit high. They don't usually advertise those. But if you want to be a director of InfoSec, or you want to be a security manager or whatever, just look at the requirements, and they'll have the certs listed right there. You just copy, paste, and Google. Oh, okay, that's what I have to get. And you can just make a spreadsheet if you want. I will find for you. There's a really good cert. I think I sent it to you, Shane. There's a really good cert box. Maybe it was Wendell, that shows all the certifications from basic all the way to like top level, and then which vertical.
You're talking about pauljeremy.com, right?
Yeah, let me find that thing.
Yeah, that image is gold. I reference that all the time. So I think Mike is right on, especially about a certain point, and that is getting into some sort of tech-oriented job, whatever that is. Usually that's a little bit easier to get into than a straight cybersecurity job. And then working on cybersecurity on the side, like showing that you are committed, you are getting certs, you're setting up labs, you're doing things. As a leader, I do try to open up entry-level positions. I think that's very important, to reinforce the people that, basically give people that want to get in a chance. And that's always what I look for. I'm not going to expect that somebody comes in with 5 years of cybersecurity experience. I want somebody who shows that they are committed and that they really want to learn cybersecurity. And then these intern positions that I like to have, and I've seen other leaders put into their organizations, it's really like a rotational thing, right? Like you go do work across several cybersecurity teams, and you learn what they do. And, from there, you kind of figure out where you want to land. And a lot of those intern jobs will lead to a full-time position, because frankly, when we find people that are good in cybersecurity and they're committed and they're passionate about it, even if they don't have all the experience or technical knowledge yet, it really does mean a lot. It's enough to keep, to want them to continue to work with us, right? So yeah, that would be my advice. I think that's a good way to start.
Awesome.
Yeah, that internship, that's a job interview.
Yeah.
You need to go into that internship saying, I'm going to win this job at the end. Because if you're good, believe me, even if they don't have an opening,
Yeah.
if they don't have an opening and you're a rock star,
They will find
they're
one.
going to make an
Oh,
opening.
they'll find it. Yeah,
Yeah.
because and the other thing too, I mean, internships are not just for like recent college grads or people still in school.
Yeah.
Like it really is a foot in the door. And I think if you really want to go into it, that's a really good opportunity for folks.
Yeah. My
I
sister.
think the other thing too that somebody touched on that I want to double down on is to start talking to people. Like find somebody who maybe they have a career path that you want to emulate. Send them a note and just say, hey, I'm looking to get in. Do you have any good advice? Because then you build that connection that becomes so valuable down the line. That person, no matter how high they are in the chain, maybe not in all cases, but for the most part, people are going to remember you. And when they open that intern position, next year, they're going to reach out and say, hey, I know that you're interested in this. What have you done so far? We have a new opportunity. Do you want to apply? And now you have that leg up because you built that connection.
Yep.
I highly emphasize people networking because have you listened to Darknet Diaries? Anyone?
Yeah, a little
Darknet
bit.
Diaries
I
by Jackery Reciter. Okay, good. So I know Brian Helbach from the episode Brian John's Big Adventure. He actually is not a certified OSCP, but he got his job with Red Team Security Consulting, formerly as a Cisco network engineer. And, that's the same company that you can see on YouTube right now, where they hacked a nuclear power plant in the Midwest. So Red Team Security Consulting, and when it comes to full on like Red Team, they actually are far more diverse than what these certifications are offering. You need to have good lock picking skills. You need to have good physical penetration testing skills. You need to be able to use a shove. You know what a shove it tool is? It goes behind the bolt of the door lock, so you can open like poorly made doors. You need to know how to use a bump key. You have to bump a lock.
Yeah.
When you get
Bump.
yeah, well, you can Google it online. It's called a bump key set.
Yep.
So you bump the lock, or you lock pick it, or you just assemble a lock. You break in and take a bunch of Raspberry Pis with customized installations that basically calls back to your command and control server, your C2. And then from there, you now have a remote foothold as long as they don't find it. So it's even better than a LAN turtle from the Hack 5. The LAN turtle Hack 5 is that you take this little dongle and it looks like a Ethernet thing, right? And you put it behind their network card, so that way you can listen in on their traffic, you can intercept their traffic, spawn interpreter shells, drop your own payloads, decrypt traffic as it's being moved across a wire. But the most fundamental part from what I've seen is social engineering, lock picking. We had like a former Army Ranger in Red Team Security Consulting. Brian Halbach no longer works at Red Team Security Consulting due to mismanagement by the new owner. So he moved to InGuardian's Red Team. He still doesn't have an OSCP. He uses a customized command and control framework built by the Department of Defense. So in one Red Team engagement where they actually had to use this C2 post-exploitation toolkit that's very much like Cobalt Strike and Brute Ratel. You might have heard of Brute Ratel being cracked. It's very similar to Cobalt Strike and Brute Ratel. But Mandiant actually has a copy of the payload. So what happens is the InGuardian's Red Team actually had to invoke a national security law to prevent the Mandiant Flare team from reversing the binary and then putting on a blog or making a white paper about it. There's like Brian Halbach moved pretty high. Like you should network with him. He's on my LinkedIn profile. He's the same guy from Dark Knight Diaries who
Mm.
broke both his feet, jumping off a shed,
Awesome.
running
Yeah.
from cops.
Implement network access control, kids.
Yeah.
To
and we
prevent Mr. Tan from installing Raspberry Pis in your system.
Right, exactly. Physical security is a huge part of it, right? Again, Mike's team too, right? I personally, I happen to know, but that is an aspect that Mike has to deal with in his daily job role, is the physical security of certain systems. It looks like we have another question from Juan. Juan, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name.
Yeah, no, it's Juan. It's no problem. Sorry, I can't share video, I guess, but
No worries.
can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thanks for the input regarding some of the tips that you've just been sharing. I have a question regarding kind of the migration and probably a bit more unorthodox or in the opposite direction. I know a lot of folks from who are coming out of school and earlier in their career, they're trying to figure out how to get into cybersecurity. I'm kind of the opposite in terms of I spent a fairly long career already in IT, preceded by finance and accounting. Probably the first third of my career was in accounting and finance, and the last 2/3 in IT and mainly in like ERP, databases, data analytics. But I moved up, through manager, director, CIO, and CIO for two mid-sized firms, healthcare firms, for a total of about 12 years. But it was kind of pigeonholed in one industry, medical equipment and supplies. And so I'm looking to, I enjoyed the security management portion of it a lot more, but it was never formalized for me. So I took some time last month and studied and took the CISSP exam last week. So I'm just waiting for the certification to come out. But my question is, how does, for someone from a non-traditional background that didn't start off either coming up through the network engineering, sysadmin, DevOps, one of the more quote traditional routes. Any ideas in terms of how to transition from the other direction? And by the way, Dustin, one thing you mentioned about networking and finding other folks, I came across one person on Reddit on one of the CSSP prep study channels, who's a CISO who had a very similar background as me, mostly self-taught, bachelor's in humanities. And so I actually reached out to him, and he actually gave me quite a decent review and explanation of like what he would do and his ideas. But I think my situation is a bit, a little different because I'm coming in from the other end. And so most people who look at, I don't know if I'm mostly interested in the GRC area, not so much pen testing. But then I don't know if like, okay, does that mean that I would have to go back and start at like the ground level as like an auditor or something like that, or as an analyst, which I don't mind, I don't really care so much about titles, but it's more of just following my interests. And, but in terms of how to convince an organization that, I'm willing to do that is another story, just because, they see your history and they think, they automatically assume, hey, this person's really not aligned for this type of role.
I can help you with that. One is networking. I have known hackers since DEF CON 25. That's how I met Brian. But two, you have to make a blog. You build your presence that you're credible. You have to have a GitHub repo. You have to, any idea that you have, even ideas that might not get adopted. You know what? Like Linus Torvalds, when he made Linux, he didn't know that Linux is going to take off. It was just like a Unix variant. And suddenly it's just like the biggest, third biggest operating system behind Mac and Windows, right? So build your report, have a GitLab, have a GitHub account, submit code, contribute to the community to build credibility, volunteer. I volunteered in DEF CON 27 Red Team Village as an exploit development instructor before I made my course.
Yeah, and the variant of that, I guess, if you're not if you're not going towards a software focused kind of position, right? Like you said, like an auditor. If you're
right.
like if you're doing like a process auditor, right? Like you're trying to do like some people might have heard of Gartner or some of these other organizations that come and do security audits of an organization, right? What they do is they look for processes. If you have standards and processes documented, and you have things in line to help make sure that your company runs in a fashion to incorporate security within it, that's an auditor position. It has zero focus on the technology specifically,
right.
with the security focus, right? But again, Chang is right. What you got to do is you just got to show the initiative a little bit, find what I guess sub area of the vertical of cybersecurity you're interested in, and you're just gonna have to, I guess, bite the bullet and dive in a little bit, start digging in, get a little information, and just again, like you said, give back to the community a little bit, involve yourself with the community as a whole. And then once it's realized that you actually have that interest, that drive, and that desire, and now you have at least some knowledge because you've been doing it for 6-8 months or whatever, that's when people are going to go, oh, well, this guy is definitely someone to put on the potentials list, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
GRC is
also
gonna be
think
rough.
it's broad enough. Sorry, Mike. I
No,
also
go ahead.
think the field is broad enough that you can figure out where your unique existing experience can kind of just plug into the field and continue with that path. Like that was the path that I took, and I think essentially Shane too. Like we didn't have to start at ground zero because we had development experience. We were able to come in, somewhere in the middle or even up higher because we had sort of that unique background that applied, very much to one of the domains within cybersecurity. So, like looking at GRC with your background makes a lot of sense. I think you can prove that you have the right skill set. If you work hard at it, and just kind of prove that you're willing to do what it takes, to get in. So
I see. Yeah, I don't think just because I'm not as interested in like the pen testing, defensive testing, and so on. And I've been on the other side where I've been the one being interviewed by an auditor, from a potential investment firm or something like that, where they're asking the questions and going through the different aspects of your environment and your set of solutions. But yeah, I think just in terms of like the transition or entry point, thanks for the ideas. Yeah, I think the networking. So I did learn about OWASP in the process of studying for the CISSP. First time I was actually exposed to it and heard of it, strangely, but okay, well, thanks, appreciate it.
Yeah, I think you can walk. I think you if you structure your resume correctly, especially being in senior management or even at the C level, I think that you'll be able to walk into director of GRC. And to everybody listening, if you don't know what GRC is, it's governance, risk, and compliance. Essentially, they align IT principles. So they align your company to anything that that you have to be compliant with, whether that's PCI DSS for payment card industry, HIPAA, CCPA in California, or GDPR in Europe. Whatever verticals that you have to align to these FedRAMP, there's a bunch of them. And this person is essentially responsible for interfacing with the auditors, making sure that the processes that the business are taking care of meet the requirements and continue as they, bring on new systems, grow the business, that those new avenues continue to align with those requirements. But you having managed people before, I think you could walk into a director position. You just have to craft your resume in a manner that says hey, I was a CIO you were at healthcare companies, so I'm sure you're very familiar with HIPAA. At these various companies, in our company, and I don't know about yours, but our company, the GRC team rolls up to the CIO, so he's responsible for them. And so I think you could craft your resume in a way. You just have to be a little bit careful to not look overqualified. Because if you were trying to get into an entry level position with, if I was the manager and you were trying to get into entry, I would be looking at your resume like, what? Why does somebody who is a CIO want to be an analyst? So I would honestly aim high. I would go director. I would just director, craft your resume appropriately, network a lot, and just apply until you get a shot at an interview and see if you can get through there with your current knowledge.
Yeah, especially if you have a background in the business processes and the business side. Again, like I said, director or something like Mike said of platform security audit or internal audit, director of internal audit, like stuff like that. That would be a great fit from what it sounds like to your background, right? And that CISP, yeah, someone sees resumes are coming across their desk for internal audit. Auditing experience, business analyst, ooh, CISP. They obviously pay attention to some detail if they got a CISP cert, because those tests, I've taken those ISC squared tests. They try to make you fail in the way that the questions are worded. So
yeah, that's no joke.
Pay attention to that detail for that. So, and that's noteworthy for that type of a position.
Yeah, I think this GRC area just it's not considered as exciting, I guess, or sexy as the other areas of cybersecurity. Although I find it really interesting, and I think that's where I've been struggling to find more references in terms of like what the preferred route is in terms of application, and then when you apply for them, also a lot of them are heavy industry specific experience focused. So like they want X number of years in public government or either government or nonprofits or education, something extremely specific.
Healthcare, yeah.
Right. And
so the one thing I've noticed though is every job posting I've ever seen, I don't know if you've ever heard of the 80-20 rule, right? But if you're 80% of the way there with the qualifications, you're probably one of the better qualified applicants.
Yeah.
So if you're really still like on the fence and you want to sway a little bit from what your background would more directly lead you to, right? Maybe GRC isn't quite as enticing, right, or as exciting. Then you might have to take a step back and get back on a learning track a little bit to pivot to whatever section of cybersecurity that does interest you a little bit, right? And that's that personal decision, again, I'm always here to help guide. You can always reach out, but that would be the best advice I could give. Anyways.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for your comment there as well, Justin. I think I definitely agree with the necessity of it.
Yes,
I think
that is right.
Also in terms of the evolution of it, I'm interested in seeing like how I think data analytics kind of overall can be used to apply against the massive logs and stuff that Mike was alluding to earlier. So especially in terms of the assessment of risk, but anyway, I appreciate it. Sorry, I didn't mean to. I'm a little bit more verbose than I probably should be sometimes.
No, it's all right. And I mean, a good data analytics background is also great, right? You could find a company that's what they do is, build security software for for consumers that leverages AI, right? So I mean, there's a lot of options, right? But I know we are just a few minutes over time, so I apologize to everybody that had something that they had to jump to at 7. Did not mean to run a little bit long, but I did want to point out really quickly. Again, there's some good resources in the CISA.gov and NIST. NIST basically facilitates the open source transmission of cybersecurity knowledge and vulnerabilities to the IT community at large, right? Several keywords here: CWE, CVE, CVS. Check out NIST. Start looking into some of this. These are very core aspects of cybersecurity, regardless of what area you're trying to get into. They're very good to know, right? Check out SANS and ISC squared if you're looking for training. There's some of the most renowned certifications that you can get under those two organizations, right?
Try to get your employer to pay for the SANS. It's pretty expensive.
Yeah.
Like $8,000 expensive.
When it comes to expenses, usually you can get your job to pay for it. It's not meant to be paid for by yourself. Like, unless you want to do the work study program, it'll probably be around $2,000. But your job is supposed to be paying for it because they find a use for you. Whoever is listening. to pay for that course.
And if you have military benefits, if you were ex-military and you have a GI Bill, they will also pay for the certs. Although I would recommend using it on college just from a cost saving standpoint if you're going to go.
All right. And with that, again, a couple minutes over, but we got to wrap this up a little bit. I appreciate everybody coming today. OWASP Las Vegas, it's all about the networking. If you are networking, feel free to join OWASP Las Vegas. It's free. You don't have to pitch in. It's good for the community. We're always here to help each other, right? Jump in, answer somebody's question, make their day. Ask a question, right? Make someone feel great by being able to help you. If you're a job seeker or a hiring manager, also, feel free to reach out. Let me know. We have lots of people coming to these events. Happy to coordinate a new position for somebody. And again, always appreciate any feedback that anybody might have, whether it's the presentation, the chapter itself, OWASP itself, whatever, right? Always love the feedback. The chapter president, Carmi Moser, is not able to attend today. I myself and Shane Mitchell, the vice president for the Las Vegas chapter for OWASP. Again, we are looking for sponsors. If anybody has the ability to push for a corporate sponsor in the Las Vegas area, definitely would help get us to do more of these big events like this to help the community. If you would like to personally pitch in and help, I would definitely appreciate it. Currently, it's running on me and Carmi's shoulders. If we could get more people to help pitch in a little bit, we'll be able to, again, do more events like this, do more intricate things. I'd love to start coordinating some capture the flag exercises. I have some vendors that I've been talking to. So keep an eye on the Las Vegas OWASP meetup events. We might very soon have some really cool events for capture the flag and some other things. I am also planning another panel discussion purely focused on the application security and how to bridge from software development to an application security or DevSecOps type role, or even just plain from dev to DevOps, right? Because security is baked into DevOps, whether you call it DevSecOps or not. So, and with that, again, appreciate everybody's time. Thanks for sticking the few extra minutes. I'm willing to stick around for another few minutes if anybody has a couple extra questions. Any panelists that need to head out, definitely appreciate your guys' time again. Thank you so much for making tonight possible. And yeah, everybody have a great weekend.
Thanks a lot, everyone. I'm gonna hop.
Yeah, thanks, Shane.
Have a good one.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
See you around, guys.
Good night. Bye.
Awesome. So I'm gonna hang out for just a few minutes in case anybody has any extra questions or anything. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to ask? It's all right if not. It makes things a little easier on me. The link to what? Which link? The last one posted, I got disconnected. Okay. I'm not sure which one that was, but we do have recording on, so it might record the whole chat history. There's a lot of links posted here. Let me see. The one that does record the chat history. Awesome. So I could get that out. Again, I'll be posting the recording on the meetup.com page. If you want, you can always send me an email and I can send you links directly as well to download the recordings and everything.
Roy has a question about how to program. Well, My first programming language was when I was 17 years old in the year of 2006. I was in the concurrent enrollment program and I learned Visual Basic 6.0, not knowing that was going to be a useless language later on because they switched to .NET applications. The first useful language I learned was Python. And, basic scripting with Python, write my own cute little app, write like a little web server with Flask, write like my own exploit scripts that, inject shell code across the network, reverse engineering using Python. A lot of people use Python. Almost everybody knows Python. Then I would recommend something like a web app based language like Node.js. So where would I learn that? I would say, the public library, they have this thing called a team treehouse. The classes are a bit out of date, but you can really get started for free if you get a library card and you can go to the public library and get a team treehouse subscription. And you can actually learn a lot of these languages. I think they also teach you C and C++, which is, more important for reverse engineering binary exploitation. MH